Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the ROKER RAPPORT Player Ratings Podcast. It's Gav back once again after a Sunderland defeat. Not one I particularly care about, but we will get into that. And I'm joined by Connor and Malc. Connor, how we doing?
Good, yeah, I enjoyed the game even though we got beat, but yeah, it was alright.
A useful exercise. Malc, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, and similar feelings, you know.
In your little man cave, I see.
Correct, yeah. This is where I was for the last pod that we recorded. That's why you could hear the fireworks so loud. But, you know.
The mobile ROKER RAPPORT studio, we'll call it. Yeah, so we're going to quickly run over the game tonight, which, to be honest, I don't want to talk about in too much detail. Sunderland lost to Fleetwood Town in the Papa John's Trophy. Some are calling it the Pizza Trophy. Either way, there's a bit of a joke. I wish I could say the same for the result. I mean, on paper, 2-1 against Fleetwood Town on the back of losing to Mansfield doesn't look great, but you have to take into account quite a lot of things. One being that Sunderland were completely in control going into the second half before three defensive injuries really caught up with us, and Fleetwood got the second goal, and that's kind of where it all came crashing down for Sunderland. But we did start well. We were in possession of the ball for most of the half. Great little finish from McFadzean to open the score, and we'd hit the bar a few minutes in from Oliver Younger. It all fell apart once we started getting injuries, unfortunately, and Younger was the first to go just before half time. He'd had a brilliant half for me on his Sunderland debut. And then second to go was McFadzean, and third to go I think was Kieran Dunn, who came on for Younger. It was all a bit confusing. We made three subs and they were all defensive injury changes. And it basically played into Fleetwood's hands. They had two good chances, took both their goals, and controlled the second half from that point. And to be fair to the Sunderland players, we never really gave up. It was just one of those things. We completely lost our momentum, and unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But it isn't an important result. Both teams go through regardless. The only thing that matters is that because we lost, we have an away game next time out. But Connor, do you care? How do you feel about all of what you've just watched?
I wasn't bothered about the result. I was just sort of glad to see some of the younger players play. And I think the first 45 minutes sort of justified the fans' feelings that at least some of these players should be given a bit more of a chance in the league games. And certainly the creativity that we showed in the first half and the pressing game we pretty much showed all game is sort of much better than what we're seeing in the league performances at the minute. So I think a lot of the players tonight can be happy with their work and can certainly think that they can, knock on the door, and there's no reason why a Dan Neil can think that he can't get ahead of a George Dobson or a Max Powell, because he showed again tonight that he is as good, if not better.
Yeah, what did you make of the way we played that first half, Mal? I know Connor's just touched on it there, but for me, the passing was a lot quicker and slicker, and it was pretty evident that because we weren't playing with a target man, we were trying to keep it on the deck. It just shows we have players who can play good football, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a proper breath of fresh air. You know, my lad made a really astute comment when we were watching that first half an hour, 45 minutes, in that a lot of these lads are playing under 23s against Premier League 2 sides. So you could argue that, sometimes the type of football they have to play is more like that. So you may well get that out of them. But I thought it was as Connor said, very creative, very ambitious, typical young lad football. They're happy to have a go and not be too nervous. The first half was cracking, and the second half wasn't quite as good, but those injury-based substitutions made a hell of a difference, I think.
Yeah, okay, we won't waste too much time then. We'll get straight on with the player ratings, and I'll start with the goalkeeper, who I think played okay today, Anthony Patterson. I know he conceded twice, but I wouldn't say either goal were his fault. I saw more from him on his Sunderland debut, more good things, and perhaps I would put in the negative box. I think he came out and claimed his cross as well. His kicking was good. He made a couple of good saves in the first half, but overall a decent enough performance, so I gave him a 6. It's fair enough, isn't it? He didn't really have a lot to do, so we'll move along. Brandon Taylor, Connor, he comes in for a bit of criticism at times, does Brandon Taylor, when he plays in these games. How did you think he played today?
I thought he did okay. I gave him a 5. I mean, a 5. I think some people think that's some people think that's a bad rating, but ultimately a 5's. He didn't do particularly much right or wrong. Could he have been at fault for the first goal? Maybe, but I didn't necessarily put that one on him. I thought it was because we lost Younger, who we'll touch on. He came out of left centre back at that point, and you think if he's playing, the likelihood is that man will be tracked coming in the box. So I gave him a 5. I think Taylor has been one of the few 23 players who played who hasn't quite impressed when he's been given a chance. But it's difficult being a defender coming in and playing these sort of random games. So you don't want to hammer him too much, but yeah, I gave him a 5.
Yeah, the only real mention he got during the game from Danny Collins was for that first goal. He said he felt he could have slid in and stopped the cross, but I wasn't so sure. I couldn't really put any blame on Taylor for that. Malc, next up is Jordan Willis. I think he looked injured right throughout the game. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, he's always Mr. Solid, isn't he? But he didn't quite look. I think he was probably playing at about 80% best. And as the game wore on, as the game wore on, if we'd have had subs left, he would have been one of the ones that was rotated off, I think. But yeah, I gave him a 6.5. I don't think he did a lot wrong. He had a couple of sloppy bits towards the end, but I think that was him flagging and maybe him, as it was made comment on the commentary itself, maybe he's carrying a bit of a niggle that hasn't quite cleared yet. So I gave him a 6.5. I think that could be rounded down to a 6 or up to a 7, depending on how much you like the guy.
Oh yeah, I went with the 5, and to be honest, mainly because of the situation which led to him getting the yellow card. He was just so slow, lost the ball, gave a daft foul away, and then got given a yellow. But then that made us think: is he injured? Because of the 3 subs we made, I don't think he would have played a full 90 under usual circumstances.
No, I agree. Although I thought that yellow card was harsh, and I thought even with the bad touch, it was a 50-50, and they both got the ball. So I didn't think he deserved a card for that, but it's a matter of opinion, I suppose. Yeah,
definitely. Right, next up, Oliver Younger. Like I touched on earlier, I thought he was quality. He was, other than maybe Hamilton and Dan Neal in that first half, the big shining light for me. I loved the way he just threw himself at everything. He could have had a great goal when the diving header at the back post from Embleton's cross hit the crossbar, the underside of the bar. It would have been a fantastic goal on his debut. And I think we really missed him when he went off. We just didn't defend in the same way once he went off. He, like I say, threw himself at everything. When he received the ball, it was great to see his body open up and moving it around. He looks like somebody who's played senior football, and people who have done a little bit of research on him will have seen he has got some experience playing first team football, I think in Ireland, before he came to Sunderland. So yeah, I was happy with what I saw from him, and I hope his injury's not too bad, because with all the problems we're having defensively, you never know, there might be a place opens up for that lad. So I give him a 7, and a 7.5, and I like to say, he could have been man of the match had he stayed on the pitch, because I don't think we would have fell apart in the way we did. Next up, Jack Diamond, Connor.
The thing with Diamond is that sometimes I enjoy his attacking play, but I think his final ball is often not very good. I think often he hits these sort of passes across goal that are very easily defended, and sometimes you've got to think, we know we don't have men that like to run into the box. We don't have them late runners coming in. I think Danny Collins mentioned that tonight on the commentary, the fact that people weren't getting in the box. So does Diamond have to rethink how he approaches his wing play? Maybe. I think defensively he's always okay, considering he's not really a natural defender. I don't think he ever really lets us down in that spot, and I give him a 6. Yeah,
I marked him a little higher, but I did see that Jimmy on the site also felt he had a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde performance. I gave him a 7.5. I thought he's just some of his crossing was great, some of it wasn't, but I do like Jack Diamond. I like the way he has a go. Okay, George Dobson, Malc. He bit of a strange situation which developed in the game there. We had a defender on the bench. Parky decided instead of bringing the defender on, he would move Dobson to centre half. So yeah, bit of a strange one for him. He was playing all right up until that point, wasn't he?
I agree, yeah, and I think that was a bad decision by the bench and the management staff, because he was having one of his better games. He didn't have the best start, a couple of loose passes early on, but then great ball 24 minutes in. He was making runs. There was one run just after half time or just before half time where he made a cracking run, and he just needed to release the ball down the wing. When he didn't let the ball go. So, improvement's possible. But I gave him a 6.5. And I think when he was moved into the defensive threesome, we lost a lot of that midfield linkage that he was kind of giving us in between the young lads at the back and the attacking midfielders. So once that happened, you could see the shape was wrong for us to get back into it, really. But yeah, he did well. He did more for himself than he did on Saturday by a long way. So 6.5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not his biggest fan. I don't make any secret of that. But tonight he did okay, and like I say, I felt a little sorry for him in that he was moved back, and it was a strange decision from Parkinson to do so. Like I say, anybody who watched the 23s play on Friday against Wolves will have saw Patrick Almond play very, very well in that game, and I'm just surprised he didn't come on, especially with the 3 injuries we had. I was expecting him to come on when Dunn came on. I was expecting it was pretty much a straight swap for Younger. Didn't come on. Then the second injury to Dunn, I thought, well, move McFadzean back and bring Almond on. He didn't do it. And then the third change, he doesn't bring him on again. He brings on a midfielder and moves Dobson into defence. Just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I say, I think maybe numbed the amount of impact that George Dobson was able to have. Next up is Elliot Embleton, which is mine, and he was my man of the match. 8 out of 10. Thought every one of his set pieces was dangerous. He took his man on consistently, and Danny Collins talked a lot about this, about how he goes off either foot and he's just so unpredictable when he runs with the ball. He must be a nightmare to defend against at times. I'm really glad to see him come back and just almost immediately show why people think so highly of him. So that's the one shining light from the game for me, is that Elliot Embleton was great, and I can't fault his performance. So he gets an 8 for me.
Yeah.
Like I say, the whole team in the second half struggled to really impart themselves on the game. That was because of all of the defensive problems we had with injuries and what have you. But even still, Embleton was still a danger. Next is Dan Neil, Connor.
So I thought, kind of to fit the whole midfield together, I thought Dobson had probably his best game for a long time in a Sunderland shirt, and I think that's because he was playing with Dan Neil and Embleton in there, and they certainly helped him going forward, but they're also quite industrious, and they're a bit more, they're not as one-dimensional as Max Powers became, which is normally the guy Dobson's kind of slotted next to. So I think you could see there that maybe Dobson's getting hampered by the style of play when he is next to Max Power. So I thought Daniel and Embleton really helped him. I gave Daniel a 7. I think 7's maybe a little bit too kind, because in the second half he was nowhere near as good as what he was in the first half. But first half I thought he was. Him and Younger, for me, were the 2 players that really, really caught my eye. I already know that Embleton's a very good player, but seeing Dan Neil and Younger, the 2 of them, really put the authority on the game was very impressive. And I think Dan Neil is surely knocking on the door right now, because, we know how poor our midfield's been at times this season. And you just think that of the options we've got, Dan Neil's not worse than any of them players. So I gave him a 7, but I was impressed. His quality of passing at times was really good. And he just looks like a very, very good footballer, a good technical footballer.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that, probably the pass of the game came from him when he played I think it was a 50-yarder diag to McFadzean, which just landed on his boot. It was outstanding.
Yeah.
Speaking of McFadzean, that's you, Malc. How do you think the goal scorer played tonight?
Yeah, he did really well. He's had 2 games now where he's come on and had a chance to show what he can do, and he's been pretty tasty in both of them. Arguably, there was a touch of a deflection for his goal, but he made some good runs. He was quite strong in the tackle down that left-hand side when he was kind of covering across in defensive duties from time to time. He was involved in loads of stuff. A lot of what we were doing when we had that first half hour that we were really bossing it, he was involved in triangular little passes and 1-2s. I gave him a 7, and I was quite disappointed when he went off 60-odd minutes, I think it was, wasn't it? Because, again, that changed the defensive shape on the back left-hand side. And to credit to Fleetwood, they chucked one of their quick lads in that corner and recognised that we've had to rotate 2 or 3 different players and took advantage of that. A lot of their attacking football ended up being down that side. But yeah, he did really well. I hope he isn't injured too bad, because we still need that cover for Hume. And as I said on a previous pod, I think he's got the capability to really challenge Hume if Hume's having a bit of an off day. So 7 for me, and another good run out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think he's proven in the last 2 games he's good enough, and it's just a shame that he's injured. Like you say, and I think it was his injury which led to their second goal. In fact, it came from him pulling up, because he had to his hamstring went, so he stopped dead. The kid flies down the wing and passes basically, and there was more Fleetwood players around the box than there was Sunderland. Yeah. And it all came because usually your full-back would at least hold that player up for a little bit, and the rest of the team would drop deeper and get back. And because he just stopped dead because of the injury, the goal came. But it would be harsh to blame him. He got injured. and let's just hope it's not a bad hamstring injury, as we've seen this week with Benji Kimpioka, which is the worst possible kind of hamstring injury.
Yeah, terrible that, wasn't
it? Let's just hope it's not that bad. Next up is Josh Hawkes, and I think that's me. To be honest, I didn't see much of him in the game, although he was involved in our goal. He played the pass to O'Brien. I mean, I'm sure we'll get on that because he's next to O'Brien, but he played a nice pass to O'Brien, which eventually ended up with McFadzean. And there was a couple of times as well where, rather than whipping the ball in like he was, Embleton was playing them short to Hawkes, and Hawkes' crosses were quite good as well. But he was quiet other than that, I think, and he was one of many players who we just didn't see much of second half because of everything that had gone on. So I gave him a 6, and I think I might have been a bit kind there, but it was his debut, and I couldn't say he did anything wrong. So I think 6 is about right. Last but not least from the starters, Connor, is Aidan O'Brien. Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about that touch for the build-up of the goal.
Me.
Yeah. I sort of want O'Brien, because when he signed, I was excited about him coming in. I thought it was a good bit of business. I thought it was logical. You're getting a player from the Championship who's played, reasonably well at that level, and their fans were a bit disappointed that he left. So I was looking forward to him coming in, but every week I'm getting more and more deflated watching him. I gave him a 4 today, and he's in the territory now of becoming one of these players which has got a reputation of fans of just not being particularly very good, and it's hard to defeat that reputation. I think Conor McLaughlin suffered with this last season, and he's came in this year, and to be fair to him, he's done a good job, but he still has that air of fans just thinking, they don't particularly rate him too high.
Yeah.
O'Brien so far has just been very poor. I don't particularly know what he is. Is he a winger? Is he a target man? He's not a poacher, because he certainly isn't getting in the right positions or has the finishing ability. So I don't know what it is with him. I don't know if it's, is he one of them players that relies on a crowd? I don't know, but I'm just more and more disappointed. So I gave him a 4 today. I don't see how he's fitting into the system.
Yeah. Okay, I'll rattle off the rest then. Those are the subs. Kieran Dunn, impossible to mark him, so I gave him nothing. Vinny Steels and Sam Weldon, I just gave them both a 5 because it's hard to really judge them on what had happened. I don't suppose anyone will disagree, so let's just round off with the man of the match. Malc, I'll let you start.
No, I've got to rate Phil Parkinson, surely.
Well, yeah, okay. We'll go with the man of the match first.
Yeah, so I agree with your comments about Embo. I thought he was cracking. I actually gave him an 8.5 for the first half, Gav, because I thought he was a class above. And in the second half, even though we weren't really offering much, he was still, creating things. So yeah, Embleton for me, and I really look forward to him getting into the first team, because nobody can argue he deserves it after that.
Okay, Connor, I'm guessing you're going to agree, so we'll let you mark Phil Parkinson. Go on.
I would give Phil Parkinson probably a 5 tonight. I was happy that he gave a lot of the younger players a chance today, but I can't help but look at the team and wonder if any of them players will get a chance at the weekend. And I know it's silly to mark a manager on his rating for this game on that basis, but I just feel like he's going to completely ignore the performances in this game and go with his tried and trusted parky ball, mundane football at the weekend. And also I've got to wonder what happened at half time, because a lot of that intensity of the first half vanished. And I can only imagine that was something that was said at half time of calm down or
park the bus.
Yeah. Let's try and win this one. Sure, we've got a little bit of experience here to kind of, see the game out. So, maybe he didn't do that at half time, but it just felt like that must have happened.
Yeah, and I think you've got to factor in what was said earlier about the Dobson decision moving him into defence. Yeah. It was another strange one. So, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. Anyways, let's try and move on from this. We've got another game on Saturday. So hopefully, when we come back after the MK Dons game, we're all full of high spirits and we're not disappointed about losing back-to-back games to Mansfield and Fleetwood. And adding to that, a defeat against MK Dons. But we'll see. Okay, thanks lads for joining us, and of course everybody, iTunes, Acast, Amazon, YouTube, Spotify, make sure you subscribe wherever you catch us, and of course we will catch you all down the road.